Yes, hello and welcome to the Jock and Journo podcast. It is Jay Clark here, and we have the Collingwood champ, Scotty Pendlebury. We're back, Pendles.
We are. We survived week 1, week 2. Watch out.
I think today's going to be a great show. Today is going to be a great show. We're going to be talking succession plans, your experience through the famous Mick v Bucks. Wasn't quite a
the
stoush.
Bucks.
Hey?
It was just Mick and Bucks succession plan.
Well, that's what the headline said anyway.
Don't put mail on it.
Bucks has spoken about that and talked about how awkward and how stressful and how tense it was. So we're going to get your view on that. I got a strong view as well. We're going to get out some funny captaincy stories. I know you've got a cracker. I was once kicked out of a pub by an AFL captain in my younger days, which is a bit of a laugh, and some controversy surrounding the video review system.
I don't think it's controversy. It's common sense. But
Is it?
Anyway, we'll get to that, won't we?
There's a bit happening. Hey, as you said, we're back. We've had some great guests. Can I put in a request for our next guest? Can we do it live now?
Yeah, go for it.
Can we speak to Brayden Maynard? Like you're
So this is just, Scott, can you please get the next guest?
I could be able to. I could that team. He's the wrecking ball with the massive heart, Bruzzy Maynard, and I think he's got one shoulder hanging off, but he's had an outstanding season. I love his work at the back line.
I'll put the text in to him and we'll see how we go. We can get him. Mind you, you've probably got the biggest guest of all time. You got the AFL boss, Gil
McLaughlin.
You got him.
I did get
and we
him.
learn about his polo
career.
exploits. Yeah.
What was your favourite guest moment?
There's been, I reckon it's been awesome to have Paddy Cripps, Geordie DeGoey, Gil, as I said, but I think Joel Selwood that time, just because there was that incident, it sort of coincided with me and him having a few words, and then
You were sledging each other.
we were, and then the siren went. It was that really awkward moment, and then I think Mark Robinson went with, he got told what happened about the incident.
Yep.
And then the next day, me and Joel actually spoke about it on this forum.
Yep.
And then cleared it up about anything. And then Chris Scott mentioned it, that Joel went on and cleared it all up. And then, so that was probably the first time I thought in this forum and validated why we do this is because we can bring sort of stories that a lot of people can't get or things like that. We can actually clear the air pretty quickly and players felt safe on this platform.
I liked it when Geordie said he'd been offered $1 million a season over 5 years from North Melbourne, just casually dropped He said, and then my manager rang me and said, well, mate, it's $5 million over 5 years. He said, oh, my goodness. And Paddy Cripps, he talked about staying at Carlton versus going home to Western Australia and why he wanted to take Carlton to the promised land. That was probably 5 years ago, and maybe they'll get there this season. So
Let's hope not.
We love Cripps, and you've had plenty of big battles with him, of course. But we want to talk succession plans. Ken Hinkley re-signed as Port Adelaide coach, and Josh Carr waiting in the wings. Not a formal takeover plan, so it's a bit of a TBC arrangement, because if Ken Hinkley wins the next 2 flags, then he might get another extension. But you were front and centre for that extraordinary succession plan, Mick Malthouse to Nathan Buckley. And Nathan Buckley said it created a lot of stress and tension in the football club, and probably wasn't that necessary in a formal public sort of sense. How did you go throughout that time?
Yeah, it's funny because we were speaking about it before that, had you asked me when it happened, I would just say 2011. I don't even remember that it was announced in 2009, the handover, but and I used this analogy earlier. It was like moving out of a house. Like you don't really care until I've got a month to go here.
Yeah,
quickly. Got to pack the boxes. Like it just scrambles. So 2011 was obviously we just won a flag. We're trying to go back to back. And I think from just a player's point of view, there was a fair bit of stress about things that you don't need when you're trying to go back to back to try and win another flag. There's a lot of stress on players about, Mick's coaching as well as he's ever coached. Why are we doing this? And I think the biggest thing was the relationship people could see between Mick and Bucks. Mick obviously had the passion to keep going. Bucks wanted to come in and go. So there's a lot of back of house stuff that, players you can see, and players aren't dumb. You can see this tension happening, and people aren't happy, and it's just sort of the stuff for us that I don't feel like as players that you needed to focus on and worry about. And but as I said, our succession plan was 2009 was when it was announced, and then we win the flag 2010, 2011. I'm not sure whether they could have pushed it back a few years and let Mick, because clearly he was coaching as well as he's ever coached. You've just won a flag, got us into a grand final that we didn't win. And I'm not sure if those conversations were had or not about pushing it back or whatever it was. So
Bucks offered, said, look, if you want to pull the pin on it, I'm happy to. I'm pretty sure is how he described it. But he said by then relationships had broken down and were unsalvageable, which, is a pretty significant thing. So my question was, did it feel like there was a bit of a wedge in the playing group? Because you clearly had the Nick Maxwell sort of older crew. Heath Shaw seemed to side with Bucks maybe. It was the younger crew with Nathan Buckley. Did you, and you would have been cool as a cucumber and sort of pretty neutral throughout the whole thing. But did you feel that divide even a little bit?
I was probably like a little bit oblivious. I was 22. So, and, I had career certainty. I think I'd already signed like a 4 or 5 year deal. So it wasn't as stressful, but I could understand how now being older, if that happened at our football club now, I'd be worried about so many people. Like,
what do you mean?
Like, the assistant coaches, the list management, all the stuff I didn't really know about, or the amount of work that the head coach does. So like from 2009 and 10, the questions I would have now is like, oh, who's running this? Is that Mick or Bucks? Who's shaping the list? Who's making all these decisions? Bucks I assume would have been in all the meetings, not Mick. And even that sort of stuff, that just hearing it doesn't intend to be that way, but it's always Bucks or Mick, Bucks or Mick, when it probably just shouldn't be that way. And and it's interesting to hear that Bucks offered to push that back. And I'm not sure why that didn't happen, because Mick clearly was coaching as well as he'd ever coached. So maybe that could have eased some tension in the room. And I think Hawthorn did try to do a succession plan, didn't work. It'd be interesting to see how Ports goes with TBC, which sounds like probably a smarter idea than putting a fixed date on it, because, as you said, like if Ken Hinkley wins the next few flags, you already know what the stories are straight away. So I think it's smarter, as long as Ken and Josh Carr have a good working relationship and can go through the program together and do a lot of stuff together. I think it's when one guy starts to feel like they're just pushed aside and you just coach on game day, and the Monday to Friday is all the other person.
Last one's on this. If in hindsight, what would you have done? What would you have wanted to be done differently? Would you have rather Mick Malthouse kept the keys? Because then the Carlton situation came in, they took him over. So would you preferred him sort of coach longer in hindsight? And do you think it impacted that 2011 premiership? Because you won it in 2010 and then jumped out of the blocks. You were flying through the first half of 2011. Then a lot of the public stuff started to ratchet up, and your form tapered off a little bit.
Well, we were banged up a little bit towards the end of 2011. Jeez, I feel so old saying 2011. We won 2010. 5 weeks later, we went to Arizona on a training camp, which nowadays you mandatory 12 weeks off. So we went over there, but you had to get there for the altitude training.
No break.
So we come back, we were flying, and then we all got pretty banged up. Mind you, like we had an amazing year. We lost 3 games for the year. Yeah. And they all happened just to be against the Cats. Yeah. And we're going all right in that grand final until Tomahawks just tore it apart. So, I think in hindsight, obviously you don't have that back then, but if they had been a bit more fluid with the situation. So, 2009, I think we just lost the prelim by like 70 points or something like that. Yeah. They announced the succession, but then, Mick goes grand final. Yeah. Push it back. Like Bucks are going to have to wait another 2 years, which sounds like he was cool with anyway.
He would have been cool with that, I think.
Yeah. And then that probably would have just allowed Mick the opportunity, which, I sort of feel like he probably deserved, is to coach that group through, lost the grand final. Can he get us back to that mountain, make a few tweaks? Bucks was the assistant coach anyway there, so they can work through those tweaks together, and then away we go. And I think for the playing group too, it would have shown that these guys are willing to do what's best for the playing group.
He was a force at the time, Mick. He was at his absolute peak. I remember him going on the footy show and said, I just can't turn off that coaching tap. And that's when Carlton came in the offer and he went to Carlton. That wasn't as successful, but 2000.
Well, it's not surprising that someone approached him. Like he's a premiership coach, grand final coach. Then he's out of a job in 2012. Yeah. Not out of a job because he was supposed to stick around and help, but you got that passion. Yeah. Sort of like once a coach, always a coach, I see it.
And you have... What was it like playing under Mick Malthouse back in the day? At his prime.
Scary. I remember one day he threatened to cut my hands off at halftime.
You're kidding.
He said, because we were playing St Kilda and I handball a lot, and I think I had like, say, 3 kicks and 15 handballs at halftime. So I thought I was going all right. And where's Scott Pendlebury? And he come in and he goes, if you keep handballing that ball, I'm going to cut your hands off. So the next few possessions of the third quarter, I kicked it about 8 metres instead of handballing it. So, he was scary, but you loved playing for him.
Had your back.
Super motivator, and all the boys. And he always used to, whenever mum and dad were around, he'd always go, "Oh, have you seen your boy lately much?" And mum and dad would be like, "Oh no, he hasn't got home." And he'd be like, "All right, take the next 3 or 4 days off, get back to Sale.
Really?
Go spend some time with your mum and dad." So, No, he was an awesome coach. I've been very lucky, like 3 coaches, 3 awesome coaches. So, they've all been really good.
And Fly, in his own way, doing his own things. I might try and get Fly in too if he's got some time. We can try and have a chat with him.
I'll organise that then.
Hey,
Yeah.
what?
You just tell me who you want. I'll organise it. You do not much else.
I'll ask Craig. Hey, interesting. Darcy Moore out with a hamstring for the next couple of weeks. You're not only missing Nick Dacos, it's Darcy Moore as well. Obviously, I wonder whether Jeremy Howe goes back. It's certainly going to be very interesting. It means the Collingwood captaincy armband gets handed over to either
Tay, Howie, or Bruzzy.
So
So I'm not sure if they might. I don't know this, but they might rotate it sort of for the next 2 weeks. So Howie and Tay and Bruz. So work out who will do that, and then but Darcy was at training yesterday, running laps and doing some strides and stuff. So it was awesome. So I didn't expect him to be out on the track yesterday. So it's good news.
Recovery going well. We're going to speak about Nick Dacos. He's in the hyperbaric chamber as we speak and drinking a chicken bone broth or something like that.
Bone broth.
Some magic potion healing stuff to help heal that knee of his. But in terms of your Collingwood captaincy, have you got any funny stories about something that happened back in the day? Yeah,
well, I've got a few, but they're sort of hard because it just gets blurred into one. But one was
Is it because they're all Jordan to go related?
No, there's a mix, but just the overarching is the amount of excuses you hear that you just know are just absolute crap, but you sort of got to believe it. But we had one time, and I was reflecting on it. I was like, I wasn't sure. It might have been one of the dog incidents. We had a few with the dog, threw the frisbee down the hallway and broke my hand on the door handle or whatever. But I think he was playing cricket instead.
Yeah, Howie.
Howie.
Yep.
So we went to the beach. Someone was late for something. Did the old St Kilda Sea Bar 6 a.m. Monday morning for I think it might have actually been Howie for the dog incident.
Yep.
And then, no, it was Geordie. It was Geordie's dog incident or something that he'd done.
There's been a couple over the Collingwood journey. I can understand why you're a bit confused.
Anyway, so 6 a.m. we're all there.
Yep.
Sea bars. Let's get there at 6 a.m.
Freezing.
Yeah, it's freezing cold, middle of winter.
Yep.
Howie's there. Everyone's there, no Geordie.
Trouble.
Howie rings Geordie. Geordie, where are you? Geordie's like, I'm at the club. Getting ready for training. Where is everyone? Because we're all here, punishment because of you.
Freezing.
I didn't know that was today. So anyway, I just cracked it and I said, everyone, get in your car. We didn't even jump in the water.
Yeah.
Just mere the fact that you had to get up at 5:30 and get it, cracked it, said, don't worry, we're all just coming back here tomorrow.
Right.
So everyone's like, oh, not again.
Yeah.
So the next day,
a real hard
Geordie's there at like 5:45. It's like, no way he's missing it. Everyone's there. Tyson Goldsack, vice captain.
Yep.
6 o'clock. Not there.
No Goldie.
I ring Goldie. Goldie, where are you? I'm at the club.
Oh.
I was like, righto. I just was like, hung up on Goldie. I was like, the vice captain, mate, you needed to be here. This is not good. We're not showing solidarity. So Wednesday rolls around.
Yep.
Again, we're just going back.
Yes.
Get there Wednesday morning. Everyone's there. We're doing like the knuckle push-ups in the water for 15 minutes to the neck.
Oh, no.
So that was a funny one because it was trying to make like a really big stand and then the guy you're trying to make it for is late.
Yep.
Then one of the leaders is late. You're the captain, so you're like, oh, I just lost it. I was just like, this is why we're going so crap at the moment. We can't even turn up in one spot at the same time. So,
so the group was flat with you as captain.
Yeah,
I was trying to make a stand.
It didn't really work. We probably got belted that weekend anyway. So that was mine. You have any captaincy stories that
not that enjoyable doing push-ups in the freezing cold?
No, not on the sand when it's like wet under your knuckles.
Yeah,
and then I have to take it because I'm the captain. So I'm just, come on, boys, this is awesome. And I'm hating it as well. So what about you? Any captaincy stories?
Well, I remember
who is the skipper?
Well, when I started at the Geelong Advertiser as a young buck, I think I was about 22, 23. The Cats had played in a win that day. I think it was on a Sunday. And Stephen King was the captain of the time, who's interim coach of Gold Coast.
Yeah.
At the moment, carving out a nice coaching career. And I think he was a bit flat with the media at the time because Mark Stevens wrote a back page story for the Herald Sun saying he'd only taken like 2 contested marks for the season until it was like round 16, round 17. Yeah. So he there was a bit of pressure on his own sort of performance at this time. Anyway, it's midnight at the back of Lammy's on a Sunday night, the joint's heaving, and I sort of stumble up I work my way up to the back bar, and sure enough, a whole Geelong footy team's there, right, after a win. And I knew a couple of blokes from school or whatever, so I'm just working my way around the fringes at this point, right, talking to a few of the boys. Anyway, Kingy has spotted me from across the bar, and I can just sort of feel his eyeballs on me over a couple of minutes, and he's sort of starting to get a bit more agitated. I'm pretending to be pretty relaxed about the situation, and sure enough, he starts pointing at me, and he's like, "You've got to go." I'm like, mate, I'm just having a few beers with the boys. Let me go. I'm allowed to be at the pub or whatever. Sure enough, he then ordered one of the youngest blokes in the team who I knew a bit to carry me out of Lammy's nightclub. And there was a set of stairs. So he's picked me. He said, mate, you got to go. I'm like, oh, gosh, why can't I stay? And he's like, picked me up and carried me, basically, which is pretty embarrassing for a 22-year-old.
Like a little baby just getting carried out.
Carried out.
By the principal.
And up the stairs out of the pub. So every time I see Kingy, we do sort of have a bit of a chuckle about that.
So he's a bit sensitive about his form, obviously.
He was a bit sensitive at the time, but I reckon you'd have a hard time now that
he's a big dude, isn't he?
He's huge.
Like 6'7" or something.
Yeah. I was 22 at the time. Yeah. Now I'm 40. I reckon if a captain told me to get out of the pub, I'd tell you to get stuffed, Scotty, to be honest. But how times change. It is the Jock and Journo show with Jay Clark and Scott Pendlebury. We'll have more coming up shortly. Yes, welcome back to the Jock and Journo show. Jay Clark and Scotty Pendlebury, the champ, 6-time All-Australian, 5-time best and fairest winner. He hates this. Norm Smith medal, 3-time Anzac Day medalist as well. Hey, Scotty, talls and smalls.
What awards have you won?
What awards?
Yeah. I've never asked you this before.
I got the Coaches Award, like under 12s Coaches Award back in the day.
Media stuff. Is it like a media award?
Yeah, I've come second in a few things over the journey.
Yeah, that's all right.
I've been thereabouts.
Yeah.
We won the best local footy coverage, covering the GFL when I first started. But I come to second to Robbo, and I'm running a I might tell a story one time about how he picked me for the best news story of the year. Maybe we'll save that for another day. That's quite an interesting story. Hey, talls and smalls, what do you think? Who's going to light up the 450?
Yeah, it's an interesting debate. I think holistically in the next, I don't know, say 12, 24 months to 10 years, it's going to be like fascinating way that lists will go, whether you go, it's like, I know everyone says we don't copy American sports, but we do.
Yep.
Is it like small ball versus like tall ball type thing?
Feels like historically been a lot of John Brown's going to dominate, the big key forward. I feel like now we're going smaller. Do you reckon?
Yeah, well, I reckon if you look back through the history of finals, you'd probably be surprised by who would lead the goal kicking for your club or whatever. Like it was like, would John O'Brien, grand final day, was he always the leading goal kicker for the Lions or Brace or Alistair Lynch? Or was it Acker or Sean Hart or someone like that, guys like that. So, yeah, it's an interesting debate. And even, I think Carlton's the one that sort of put this debate on the map with Harry being out and they're a bit smaller mobile. Like Charlie Curnow is only 6'3", 6'4". Like, it's not like he's a big power.
194.
Yeah, like he's only just bigger than me.
He's incredibly mobile.
Yeah. So
and he's hard to contain in the air as he is on the ground. His running power is extraordinary. That's amazing.
And he gets up onto the wings and his inside 50 kicking's just gone to a new level. Like he's such a penetrating kick. So yeah, it's
like, who's your most dangerous forward? Like, I reckon it's for big chunks this season.
We don't have one.
Well, it's Jamie Elliott.
Yeah, but I think it's just dependent on what the matchups look like, how the ball's coming in.
Yeah.
And forwards they're a byproduct of how quickly the ball gets in there. Like if it's slow and boring, you can have, the best. You can have Gary Ablett Senior playing back there in his heyday, and it doesn't really matter. Like, so yeah, that's one of the things with Carlton. Their ball movements change. They're going a lot quicker. They're dominating time in front half. And when Harry was there, I think for the first 3 weeks when he was there, they averaged 110 points. So they were pretty lively, pretty potent down there. So yeah, I think he's back this week. So interesting to see the balance, how it changes, whether they go with him into that second ruck role, drop one of the rucks that they played on the weekend, and he's got to do ruck minutes. So yeah, it's always fascinating whether they're small or tall and the matchups and how that works. Richmond were, 2017, they were pretty much a small forward line.
That's right.
Weren't they? Mobile, pressure, get it in, dominate time in front half, defend really well. So
we should keep a count in September and have a small ball team. And it's the smalls versus the key forwards to see who piles on the most goals.
Geelong last year though, they had Hawkins, Cameron.
But again, he's more Curnow type.
Yeah, mobile.
He picks it up off the ground and snaps it over his shoulder half the time as opposed to taking pack marks.
Kicks goals from out of bounds. It's unbelievable. Right, multiple goals from out of bounds.
Let's talk about that. I get the feeling you're flat as a biscuit on the whole sort of video review system at the moment. So that firstly on the two Cameron ones, they're saying the AFL said one of them was right, one of them was wrong. Did you see the close handball to Cameron? Because you're normally all over this stuff.
We were like right there on that side.
And what did you say?
Well, you can't do anything, can you, after it's happened in terms of like, so you argue with the ump. One of the things I'm trying to do is not argue or labour the point as much. I just want to get on because it can affect me for like the next 10 minutes. So I'm looking for growth in that space. But yeah, I was just sort of like, that was out of bounds. Well, but then, yeah, it's more that we can't review it properly. And reflecting on the Matildas game, like that penalty shootout, she saves it. And they're like, no, you stepped off your line, do it again.
Yep.
It's just like how clean and quick that process was. And there's just no, like, it's just not, this is what happens. Like, so the Melbourne-Carlton game, like the soft call.
Goal?
Yeah, the soft call of the umpire. So every goal is reviewed. So why don't they make a decision? The goal umpire walks up and just goes, that's a goal or that's a point, but can we please review that as well? I'm not sure because I don't feel like you can live in the grey area and just be like,
well, he said,
I believe
it was a point.
I believe it was touched.
Yeah.
All right, who touched it? Where did they touch it?
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like those big pack, surely someone touched it. I think it should just be like you walk up, every goal's reviewed, take that time because like it's fascinating. He said, I think it's a goal. Either way, the evidence wasn't conclusive.
No.
So he basically like flip a coin on his call.
Yep.
Win or loss Melbourne-Carlton.
You're
And that's
saying
got
the
big ramifications on finals.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the technology is just, it's like standard definition.
Yeah. I couldn't tell, to be honest. Well, I watched it 100 times. I still wasn't sure whether he touched it or not.
Yeah. I think it's subpar when like we're playing for a fair bit in this competition and to have moments like that where it's just like, oh, it's just the rubber of the green, you win more than you lose, or the AFL ticked it off. Like, of course they're going to tick it off because it's a big issue for them. So I feel like we need to get the review system, the cameras, everything, HD, invest a bit of money, get this like spot on because you don't, Like what happens if that costs Melbourne top 2 finish?
Huge. The stakes are enormous.
The stakes are massive.
Yep.
And you're like, well, it doesn't matter. We should have done X, Y, and Z earlier in the game and we wouldn't have been in that situation. So flip a coin, they win a game of football. You don't want that scenario. So I just think we need to be better as an industry if we're going to bring it in. Otherwise, get rid of it. If it's substandard, just go back to let the umpire call. Live and die by that. I'd rather that than have this thing that we go to and it's like inconclusive umpire's call.
Grey zone, a halfway house. And you compare it to, say, soccer or tennis with the Hawkeye system, like it is extraordinarily accurate. You can tell it is bees or cat's whisker stuff, isn't it? So that is, some other sports have set a really high standard in this regard, and we are probably lacking a little bit. It's fair to say.
Yeah, well, so even sometimes in soccer, like you can score a goal and then 2 minutes later, like, no, goal's cancelled, like you were offside, we went the footage. So the game still rolls, they just cancel it. So I think we just got to get a better system in place and then get used to being able to change decisions.
Hey, Scotty, you've been magnificent. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening to the second episode of the Jock and Journo show. Let's see if we can drag Bruzzy Maynard in front of one of these mics next week. Scotty, have a great week, mate. Good luck at the weekend.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for the show.
Friday night massive game against the Brisbane Lions. I'm Jay Clark. He's Scotty Pendlebury. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.